You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. This is your host, Matt Reynolds, and I'm here with very familiar personalities to the Barbell Logic family. That's Niki Sims and Andrew Jackson. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to be here.
So
Thanks for being here.
we want to just chat a little bit. It's sort of the end of the year. And as we have thought about, we were all together last weekend in Utah and doing a private camp together. And we really thought through sort of what we had accomplished in 2020. And we looked at even when we first started setting some visions and strategies in late 2019 for what we were going to do in 2020. And then we started to think about what we're going to do in 2021. And we thought it'd make a good show to just talk through, not really business strategy, but more about the things that we've learned over the last year about online coaching and our business, how things have changed. And so I just think it'd be a good conversation for our listeners to have, to say, like, what have we learned? How much has changed for us? What's changed about the business or our service? Culture is important to us. So I'm gonna let you guys kick it off. Niki, you want to start with some things or a thing that we have learned or changed?
All right. This is one that was actually a kind of personal awareness in addition to an awareness to the business, is that there is more to life than lifting, which I don't know if I fully believed that like last year this time. Like it's such a huge anchor in my life and it's the point of our business. But I think we've really learned that in order to become a company that really is for people, we have to appreciate what else is important to them and appreciate them as in our clients and them as in our coaches.
Yeah, that's great. Andrew, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, on that thought, more to also just how we approach coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people obviously understand online coaching is, we're here to help people lift more efficiently, get stronger, help them program. And with everything that happened this year, I think that most of us experienced that with at least many of our clients. There were a lot of relationships that involved a lot more than just how to lift barbells.
Mm-hmm.
For a period of time, we were helping people come up with exercises when they had no barbells. We were working around people's lives getting completely turned upside down. And amazingly, most of our clients stayed with us, the vast majority. In fact, I remember thinking when all the lockdowns started happening, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You and me both, buddy.
This is going to be a, catastrophic event.
I was really worried.
Because people can't go to the gym.
Yeah.
What are they going to
Mm-hmm.
do? And we saw people, working with us, body weight exercises for a couple of weeks, coming up with all kinds of, MacGyver home gyms out of stuff around the house. And we were having to be creative as coaches and help them, find ways to apply the same principles. And maybe that's another lesson learned, is that the coaching principles that we use for barbells can be applied to a much broader range than just the 4 lifts with a barbell and a squat rack. Along with that, I think that we also, learned that coaching, even in an online format, involves a lot more than just the lifts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about this the way Niki first posed it is, I think, perfect in that there's kind of 2 tiers to this. The first is that there are things that matter in life far beyond strength and fitness at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Relationships matter. And interestingly enough, then that really kind of almost leads to that tier 2, but relationships matter and finances matter. Financial, for lots of people who struggle with those things, and those things matter. And so, I don't believe that strength is the most important thing in life. I think it's super important, super important. It's what my entire career has been staked on, but it is not the be all end all. And so I think for us to understand and to empathize there with our staff and our clients and each other when there are struggles or things that take priority over strength training, I think that's okay. And I think 2020 presented a perfect year to like throwing the baby into the pool there. You kind of just had to start to deal with it. And then secondly, strength is not the only thing that we do.
Right.
And I think that we have really morphed as a company that, I want to be clear as people listen to this, we are absolutely a strength coaching company.
Yeah, 100%.
And we are absolutely dedicated and focused for 99% of our clients to squat, bench press, deadlift, and press. Those things don't change, but those aren't the only things they do. And we started to look at, for us, we started to see this paradigm shift towards the quality of life, where we were trying to make sure that our clients continue to have an improved quality of life. And for most, as they get stronger, that is an improvement in quality of life, but you often have to bring in other things to the table and have conditioning or that right relationship with food, nutrition. And then that's where the relationship with the coach came in, that as people, I was amazed at the number of people who did not get to step foot in a gym for 3 months or 4 months or 5 months and continued to do the best they could with interacting with their coach. And, I have a guy that I'm thinking about now, and you'll know who you are, man, if you're listening. He is in Canada and he didn't get to train in a gym for 5 months and had to train at home. And he made forms out of concrete and created some concrete kettlebells. And, it's like dog food bags, and it's not at all optimal, but what are you going to do? Nothing. And so then he got back to the gym and we put him on LP. They opened up the gyms again. And this is maybe 3 months ago. And I put him on a linear progression and he hit PRs across the board. And this guy's pretty strong. We're talking about 405 squat for 3 sets of 5, right? All-time PRs, because I think he continued to make those deposits in the fitness deposit. And then also just the mental thing of he continued to train, whatever that looked like, out of his little apartment in Canada. And then a month ago, they shut down the gyms again and the guy's back in his apartment. And now, he went and begged and borrowed and rented, a barbell and a couple plates, and we're doing the best we can with the way we've got. And so that wouldn't be there, I don't think. And there are hundreds of those people at Barbell Logic, but that wouldn't have been there without a relationship with the client. If it's just about low bar back squats and deadlifts,
right,
when those end, the relationship ends.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge.
And I think another cool thing about that is, even with just doing body weight stuff or whatever you can Pinterest together to make weights, people doing that, they don't just improve as well as they do when they're lifting. It even showcased how great lifting still is compared to all that.
Yeah.
Because you still get to do stuff, but you can't wait to get back under the barbell because it's so effective. So it's not like we were like, oh, body weight stuff is actually better. It's easier to coach. It's easier to program. It's cheaper for people. It didn't even become an option for us to just stick with that. It only just reinforced what we wanted to do and what we have been doing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. That's good.
The other thing that I think we learned and I think did really well with this year is being very diligent with consistency, transparency, and growth. And growth, I don't want to mean that as we need all the members we can get and we're just trying to push certain numbers and just be a huge company. Growth in the sense of personal development for each of us, and growth in our systems that make our jobs easier, and growth in the sense of really filling out who we want to be. It's I think we were in our adolescent years, a couple years ago, but now I think we've really just kind of come into our own and are very much aligned with what our values are because of how we've acted, not because of how we have said we want our values to be. So it's we are very consistent in what we deliver to our clients. We're very consistent with important things on the HR end, payroll and transparency and responsibility and expectations, and making sure that there are channels for our coaches to grow how they want to grow as coaches.
I love that. I think you said it well, that it doesn't feel like we are a startup as much anymore. We still probably are. We're coming up on 5 years. But like you said, when you're experiencing this sort of exponential growth in the first couple of years, you're just trying to keep your head above water. And for us, customer service has always been a huge piece of what we do. And so we didn't want to let customer service slide. And I don't think we did, although I think that we really came into our own with customer service in 2020. Without getting too business-like, one of the things for us, you can't get around some of the hard data. And one of the big pieces of hard data is what percentage of your clients do you lose every month? And for most of the first 2 or 3 years that we were in business, we were losing about 5 or 6%. So that's called churn, 5 or 6% of our clients per month. And for all of 2020, we've hovered around 3.0, 2.8, 3.1. So we've really cut our churn percentage in half. And so people are staying, and that's good. And then we've put in people into place where it feels like the leadership team, and really the entire staff, but the leadership team is just firing on all cylinders. So, we have a dedicated person who just focuses on our client experience and make sure that they are the advocate for the client. They're back to the team. Niki, you are the advocate for the coach. I was talking to some of my really close business mentors yesterday, and they were like, Niki Sims isn't really HR. She like that's not like traditional HR is Toby from The Office, and that's not that's not you, Toby, right? That's his name.
Yeah.
So red hair to get some braces or whatever.
Yeah. Whenever I tell anybody who I first meet that I'm in HR, they're just like,
Yeah.
no.
And it's like,
and I'm like,
no, you're changing.
I'm so much cooler than that.
Listen, everybody's always talked about how, that one day I'll write the business book and tell all these stories of all the stuff we've been through. But honestly, I think that we're doing something there, and you're doing something that, like, you're doing HR in a way that HR hasn't really ever been done. It's like, typically HR is, oh man, the HR person called me. I'm going to get a pink slip. I'm going to get a write-up. I'm going to get in trouble. What's the thing? And I think that you've done a really good job. The reason I'm going here is that because we've spent a lot of time over the last several years focused on serving the clients. And I think you really pushed this year to make sure that we also serve our coaches and support our coaches well. And so, we're never going to be complacent with any of these things, and we don't do any of them perfectly. But I do think that we've been able to be more transparent. Like, this is exactly who we are. We've come into our own as our own company and our own brand, where it feels like this is different than what anybody else is doing. And it doesn't mean it's better than everybody else. It's just us.
Yeah, it's just us. I like that.
And so I think that's a huge piece of what we're doing. And I'm proud of us, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's been a while since I've cried on the podcast.
Yeah.
Where
you're going to make me emotional too.
My family or my mom, where my family or my mom or, people that I respect look at this business, I think they would look at it and say they're proud of what we put together. And like, for me, that's a huge deal, right? And so I've said before, you guys have watched me go through this. There was a time when trolls and haters and things like that years ago would really bother me on the internet, and strangers that said mean things would bother me. And I just don't care at all about that stuff now. But I still want the people that I love and respect to love and respect me in this business. And I'm so proud of the thing that we've put together this year. We've, most people, it's not a secret. We've come through some really hard times in 2019, especially 2020 has been good. And so I'm just proud of what we put together. And I don't think that it has very little to do with me. It has to do with the culture that we built the company on, that the company was founded on. It takes a while for that culture to really take hold. And I think the culture is really like what you hear us preach. And it's true what you said. What you preach is not the culture. It's what you do.
Yeah.
And it's not just what we do as leadership, but until it's what our entire staff does, down to the associate coaches and the interns, the administrative team, until it's what our clients do, then it doesn't really become solidified as our culture. And I think in 2020, our culture was really solidified. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, you said something about churn a couple minutes ago that made me think of discussions we were having around prioritizing a low churn. And I think it came up, we were like, well, are we just going to modify workouts at the whim of clients just to keep them from quitting? And I remember that was something that we had to talk through. And we haven't done that. Like, we've only become just better and better coaches who maintain long relationship with clients because we care about what the client wants and needs, but we're able to kind of translate the importance of strength and how we're able to provide guidance as strength coaches into something that adds that value in their life because of being strength coaches, not because we're going to be therapists or, dietitians or whatever they think they need. Like, we're ourselves, but we're not sacrificing our soul to keep numbers high.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, both of what you were just saying, Matt, and also you, Niki, that what's been really interesting for me to see and experience in a small business coming from my past, which was working for massive organizations that had very formal strategy deployment processes and day-to-day metric management in order to drive growth and performance, is that, a year ago when we did our strategy deployment meeting and we had all these plans and goals and objectives as a company, I remember we talked about, like, we're going to know that this is the right thing if in a year from now we look back at that plan and did it, even if we weren't necessarily just super disciplined about checking up on whether we were doing it throughout the year. And last weekend when we got together and looked at that action plan and look at all the things that we did in the last year, and it's amazing, and it's cliche to say, but you always underestimate what you can do in a year and overestimate what you can do in a day. And I definitely felt that at the end.
It was a very gratifying to-do list to look at. There was so much stuff crossed off.
Holy cow. We really did
Yeah, I mean, there were probably what, 500 action items.
Yeah.
Is that an exaggeration? That's probably somewhere in the ballpark, right? Of 450, 500 action items. And 95% of them, 97% of them were checked off. We did it.
Yeah, it's cool.
And to me, what that really speaks to is that we are grounded in values that we actually act out, and we have a good vision for where we want to go, and the outcome takes care of itself. I think as a company, and I think this is true in training, we have principles that we value and that we believe in, and that you set as part of the company years ago. We have a direction that we're focused on. And then day to day, we're just in the process of getting better. And then the outcome takes care of itself. Same was with churn. I wasn't really looking at churn when we weren't really even talking about churn, except for to recognize how it was improving throughout the year. But we were focused on getting better and providing better service, and how we can support our clients and our coaches better. And then the outcome came with it.
Yeah.
I've worked, like I said, with a lot of really big companies, multi-billion-dollar companies that try to do that. And I've only seen it happen a couple of times, maybe 1 or 2 years out of the decade that I was working, where that kind of result occurred. Often people get buried in chasing the metrics or chasing the outcome, or too wrapped around the axle about, some detail of the process rather than just
the minutia.
Yeah, exactly. And so to your point, I think that it's really rewarding and fun to be part of a company that works that way. And I don't know, I don't want to blow too much smoke here, but I really credit a lot of that to your leadership, Matt. And it's been really fun to be part of a company that has that ability to maintain direction and yet be flexible. I mean, you totally changed, for example, how we manage our monthly metrics halfway through the year, and we started implementing.
Yeah.
And it was interesting too, because we were using something that was a little bit more well-known, the kind of the Andy Grove OKR approach.
Yeah.
And we were just like, you know what, this isn't really working. It doesn't really make sense to us, and changed it. And it's been significantly more effective. And so that's pretty cool.
We made it our own, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't get through this podcast without saying, like, I am so lucky and so blessed that the pool of people that I've had to choose from to help join me in this team is, that it's not about me. And I'm also very lucky that I had the pool of people to choose from, because our staff is incredible and our clients are incredible. We've talked about this too. And part of this, it actually opens up the ability for Niki Sims to be the advocate for the coaches, and for Nikki Berman to be the advocate for the clients, because they're not dealing with drama and putting out fires all the time. So instead, they actually get to focus on serving these people rather than, we've got another dramatic fire we have to put out. And so,
right. It's really easy to fight for such great people.
That's right. That's right. If we were putting out fires every day, it would just be impossible for you to be who you are right now, because too much of your energy, it's the training budget, the stress budget, the nutrition budget, the financial budget. It's the same thing with your job budget. If you spend all the time doing these things that sort of suck and are urgent but have to be taken care of, you don't get to focus on the stuff that's really important. And so, first off, I'm incredibly thankful to the leadership team and the entire staff. Our coaches are incredible. I mean, and I don't even want to say all the way down to, I hate that term, because our associate coaches are incredible. Our admin team's incredible. And honestly, we couldn't do it without any of these people. They all play such an integral part of our business. I think we turned a corner from a culture standpoint, from internalizing our culture midway through the year last year, when we moved to this new style of kind of vision. And without getting into the weeds, it's really simply just identifying what the big goals are. We call it game plan. It's a little bit cheesy, but it helps us remember game plan. So the G stands for goals. A is the actions that help us meet those goals. And M is the metrics for how we measure whether it was actually working. But it really all stems from, what are the goals? What are the big picture goals? And we had a very passionate and good conversation about the fact that for us, service, both to our clients and to our staff, will always be number one, and growth will always come after that. And comes back to what Andrew was saying. I think there are times when businesses have to probably, for sometimes out of necessity, have to make growth the primary thing. And we could have made growth the primary thing and probably would have made some more money this year, but it's short-term growth. It's not sustainable and doesn't last. And I think what we've done is we've focused so much on serving people well. And again, listen, I know there are people that listen to this right now. They're like, they didn't serve me that great. We're not perfect at it. Like, we've made some mistakes along the way.
Right.
And we won't be complacent about it. And we're not going to stand and shout from the rooftops that we're the greatest customer service company ever. It's not that. It's that we're constantly striving to get better. And that's the number one goal always. And we don't do any of the other things if it sacrifices service. We don't sacrifice service. And so when service to our staff and service to our clients are number one, then what I think we've seen, and we've seen this really in third quarter of this year and fourth quarter of this year, and what the projections are for first part of next year, is that the growth lags a little bit behind, and then it starts to hit hard, and you can see that its long-term growth is coming. And of course, listen, crazy stuff could happen, right? Like the economy could get shut down for another year and a half, and it could change that sort of stuff. But you see that we invest in service now for the growth later. And I was talking to another business mentor of mine. He said, listen, man, it's only a matter of time for you guys, because the thing that really makes this land is the word of mouth. And word of mouth takes a little while, because it's not like going to a CrossFit class or a hot yoga class or something that's really fun today and be like, it's so fun, you have to come do this thing. It's that it takes 6 months or 9 months or a year for a client to really change their life, change the way they look, change the way they carry themselves. And then their friends and family go to them and say,
Right.
like, what are you doing? And they're like, let me show you. So, the slope takes a little longer to get there, but it's coming. And, this person who's a client of ours, he said, I've sent 8 people. I have 8 of my friends that are now Barbell Logic clients because,
Wow.
but he said, I've been a client for 5 years. And he said, almost all of those people have come in and become clients in 2020 because it takes that long for them to really see the difference and see that it's sustainable. And it's not this thing that they're excited about for 3 or 6 months and they're going to burn out and go do something else. And so
that kind of triggers a thought for me to, trigger word.
triggered by trigger.
Just don't say empower.
So one of my lessons learned, and I've always kind of known this, I think on some level, but this year really hit home, lesson learned that we have amazing clients. And that comment there just kind of remind me, or gets me to think about a couple of clients in particular. Shout out to Bobby Pierce. I know he listens to the podcast.
Bobby's so nice.
These guys and gals who have been with us for years and have literally transformed their lives and are committed to the process and are super appreciative of what's happened in their lives and can see it, and their family and friends can see it in them. And again, coming from an industry and a world where customers did nothing but beat you up to get you to make more stuff faster for less cost all the time, constant pressure, and nothing was ever good enough. It's just really refreshing and something that I value a lot, to be able to work with people who are, just aligned with what our values are around quality of life, and can see that we're invested in helping them get that in their life, improving their quality of life. That's been something I've really been able to recognize and appreciate this year.
Yeah. Our clients are great. I was thinking, we were talking about this in Utah last weekend. I've got, since you gave a shout out, I'll give a shout out. Father John Floater. I was looking the other day. He has completed 886 workouts with us.
Yeah.
Now think about that. On average, a client is going to complete 12 to 16 workouts in a month.
Yeah.
That guy's done 886. He has completed more workouts than anybody we have, I think, on the team. And I think Brett McKay is number 2. And so I have a guy that crossed over 300. He's in the low 300s now. He's never missed a workout. He's been with me for a couple years, and he hasn't missed a single workout, including the guy bought a house and moved into a new house last weekend, moved all his own, he's got a squat rack and everything, and was like so exhausted. And I was like, bro, it's okay. You don't have to. And he just did it. And he did the training. They're just committed. And so when you have clients like that, then, it's awfully easy to, they're a lot easier to serve.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And so this service piece is a two-way street. Like, we want to be able to serve well, but our clients make it so easy for us to do that. When you see somebody who's really rude at the grocery store or something, and I'm like, boy, if I had to deal with that every day. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that Niki's in her position is because on the occasion that we would have to work with that, my response was never as good as Niki's was. So she was like, hey, anytime we get a mean email from now on, just let me go ahead and take that one. That's been several years, and I haven't. I don't even see them anymore. I'm not even on that email account. So
yeah, that's nice. I don't think they happen that much now.
No, they don't. They're rare. And a lot of that too, I think, is we're a lot more clear and a lot more transparent about what the expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the paying into that 401k that Niki Berman does for us, and in making sure that she develops great relationships with the client, that the personal coach develops great relationships. And so then there's no misunderstanding about what the expectation is when it comes to things like billing or going on vacation or little things that pop up. And so it's been really good. I was thinking about how proud I am about the content we've put out this year, especially the comprehensive library. And, you know, Nick Solin, as our editor in chief, has done such a tremendous job curating that as our culture, we're not a completely different culture than what we were when we first launched this business. But again, we've really come into our own. And so what we were able to do is take some of those older podcasts and older articles and older things, and we were able to pull them down for a short period of time, curate them, and start to put those out in topical, you know, like the series on the podcast, or in topical article series, same sort of thing. So Andrew, were you the one that was telling us this last weekend too, where you're like, when you want to learn something about, somebody said this
It was Andrew
in Utah, and you're just like, you just Google whatever, and Barbell Logic's at the top of the list on almost everything there's to know about this. And I'll turn this over to you in a second. One of the things that I think is awesome is that it's not complete yet, but I think we've got a very comprehensive content library for beginners, barbell enthusiasts, learning coaches, future coaches, and expert coaches alike. And so it's taken 5 years to build that content, to really create the life cycle of what we see clients do at Barbell Logic. You know, they often consume our content sometimes for 6 months or a year or 2 years before they ever become a client. Then they become a client, they fall in love with training, they fall in love with strength training, they get strong, and then they become a barbell enthusiast and start to learn everything they can about this. And then they're like, man, I need to coach other people. I need to change their lives. And so we now have this with the academy and all the things we've put together. We have this entire education program so that we'll take people from just sort of fringe community content consumers to clients, to enthusiasts, to future coaches, to coaches, and for some of those people, eventually staff members for us. And it's been really cool to watch that process and cycle play out as well. I left you guys speechless.
Yeah.
Niki, you have another one?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to articulate this really well. So hopefully this doesn't come out awfully, and maybe you guys can help me walk through this one, because I know it's consistent across all of us. But I feel like we have moved on, and I know this has been something personal for me too, but it's like we're not trapped in negativity or being dogmatic or feeling like we're always on the defense or getting attacked. Like, we're not consumed by the desire to create drama by talking about other people badly or thinking that something is directed at us or anything. Like, I feel like we just don't get consumed by that negativity anymore. And instead, we just get to focus on what we want to do for our company. And even in my personal life, it's like there have been a lot more opportunities to hold on to a lot of anger and to, I guess, kind of feel like a victim or just be really mad at a lot of people. But it seems like this year has just become easier to let that go and appreciate how much better our lives are, our work days are, when we're just not trapped in that cycle of meanness and negativity. Just feels so much better.
Yeah, I think, can we just be real for a second? So in 2019, well, let me say this. We have always taken the high road. I hope people think that. I don't want to just say that, but I hope people looked at our actions and said, and can see that we've taken the high road and been the professionals. When there are people who don't like us or groups that don't like us, we've never said a bad word about anybody publicly. And in 2019 and in my life before 2020, even for years, I talked about some of the haters and trolls. I still didn't say bad things about anyone publicly, but privately it ate at me. It gnawed at me. And it was very hard. It was 2018, 2019 were very hard years where those things gnawed at me. And yet we still, because of what our culture is and because we were focused on being professional and not being a part of that, I didn't want to be a part of that storm, and we're not going to throw crap at each other. That's not what we're going to do. But that didn't mean that inside it didn't consume my thoughts often. I think I can say that. This Pewter wouldn't say it, but that was the source of many conversations that I had with Dr. Pewter and other psychiatrists that I've worked with, was like, how do I get out of this on a personal level where it's not consuming who I am anymore? And something just happened at the end of 19 and at the beginning of 2020 where it doesn't consume my thoughts at all anymore. And not only I'm not even angry, I'm not angry about things. So it's not just about being outwardly professional, that we don't talk bad about other people. We don't talk bad about our competitors. We just try to be entirely encouraging publicly, but deep down inside, we're like, them. Now it's not that at all. It's just like it doesn't consume me. And with that, there has been it's been incredibly freeing to be free from the bondage of that just anger. And, and I think freed us up to really focus on the growth of the business. And again, not growth just by numbers, but growth in depth in our relationships with our clients and staff. And so, yeah, it's been incredibly freeing for us this year. And I think that's why we've come into our own.
Yeah. It's like we didn't kind of fall into the trap of polarization, being like, oh, you don't like what we're doing? Well, go whatever. Or you want to go and pursue this hobby? Like, well, that's lame. We're better than that. Like we didn't become that. It's now like, I feel like we can better.
But human nature is that you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to like have an enemy, and it's like, that's an easier emotion to feel. But now it's like, since we're seeing a person as a whole person who maybe has ebbs and flows of how they want to train and ebbs and flows of their ability in the gym, it's not deciding that they're useless to us or demonizing their values. It's just like, cool, those are your values. Awesome. Like, we're not just like with us or against us. And that feels really, really good.
That's good. Andrew, you got anything for us?
I was thinking back to your comment about expectations, and I think that's been a huge managing expectations. I think that's been a huge lessons learned for us as a company from 2019 to 2020. We made that a huge priority into 2020. Having felt a lot of pain as a business, as an organization, and with our clients, that if we weren't careful about being very explicit, or as explicit as we can be about expectations, both in terms of what we expect from our client or our coworkers or ourselves, and communicating about that, then we noticed, or at least I think we all saw, that created a lot of problems in 2019. And I think we've done a much better job.
Definitely blew up in our face a few times.
Yeah. We've done a much better job this year, I think, about being open and transparent, and have, again, not perfectly. There's been a lot of pain, but or mistakes, maybe not pain, but there's been mistakes, at least if I think about things I've done this year. But because it's something that's at top of mind all the time for me now, I think I've been a better coach when I am explicit about expectations, and a better member of the team.
Yeah. By the way, it's all you guys.
Yeah. It's nice to have trickling down from you guys.
Not from me. I mean, listen, this is one of those places where I think I can be honest about, I'm not great at this. I think I'm pretty good at giving expectations for the company as a whole, but my brain operates, even though I'm a systems guy, and I am a systems guy, I'm really what I am is I'm a pretty good first systems guy. And by the time you get to the second, third, fourth, 10th permutation of that system, I'm like, I don't know. And you guys, you two, and Niki Berman and Josh Veach and people like this that have created, guys like Dan Schell who work behind the scene, and most of our listeners probably don't even know who that is. And the guy is like unbelievably valuable to us
because Dan Schell's the man.
He helps set those expectations. And so we have very clear expectations for the company. We have very clear expectations for every single position, including our positions as executives of the company. We have responsibilities and expectations sheets and contracts with the company. Even for me, if there's a contract with the company, this is my role, and this is what is expected of me as CEO of the company, and for you guys as well. And that, again, for every single staff member that's been put in place, I think that we've done a far better job for our expectations for our clients as well. And it's avoided a lot of that drama. But this is another one of those things where I really need to, in a very authentic way, put you guys on the pedestal, because that is a place where I am weak and you are strong, and you have done a tremendous job of bringing that. You saw that we had a little bit of drama there anyway, and I think you guys saw that this was going to come to a head if we didn't get this really ironed out. And so you guys were the ones that did iron it out on it, and I just checked it off and gave it the thumbs up to you all. So you did a great job.
Teamwork.
So here's one on just personal lifting. How about we could actually talk about training?
Oh yeah, right. Matt,
So
keep your shirt on.
This year was just sweating.
Matt was briefly wearing a crop top. I wish you all could have seen that.
Took my shirt off and my undershirt was high above my nipples.
It's like 62 degrees in your house and you're sweating now. I have to take clothes off.
That was a hot shirt I had. The second layer that I had on was intense. That would have been warm for Provo. All right.
Sorry, Andrew.
All right. Training. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is just, I don't know how many times we've said this, but I certainly, again, sometimes you have to learn a lesson multiple times, but having clear, defined goals and accountability with a coach to get there makes a huge difference. You know, I've counted macros and cut weight before many times, but when I started working with Jillian last November, probably the first time that I've been consistently able to drive towards a goal that she helped me set also. And, you know, lost over 25 pounds. And then also working with Matt simultaneously was able to PR all of my lifts in the last year. So, you know, just another huge lesson learned again, that coaching matters, and having that ability to talk to somebody to help you set good goals and navigate around situations that come up, like global pandemics, are, you know, super valuable and make a difference. You know, I mean, this is probably measurably been one of the best training years of my career. I mean, if I look at all the metrics, and I think that's pretty incredible considering how long I've been training to still be hitting PRs and losing weight.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you don't look like the same person. I mean, you look like a super athletic, lean version of yourself. And then you're stronger now than you were then.
right.
Which is pretty cool. And really, Niki, you've done the same thing over even a longer period of time. You were in a pretty good spot at the end of last year even, but the last several years, you've been in really good shape. You've trained, you've gotten really strong. You seem to have had a good handle on nutrition, and you've fallen in love with BJJ as well.
But JJ.
Yeah, that's been a really fun thing to get into.
Is it BJJ or just jujitsu?
BJJJJ.
I don't.
Yeah, that's been a really fun thing to explore, like, because, you know, when you lift a really long time, really, I don't think I PR'd much except for my bench press single, my deadlift in the last couple of years, which is fine because those are the things I care about. But getting hurt earlier this year, you kind of have to be a little more creative with how you enjoy training and how you enjoy being strong, because sometimes it just feels like a little bit flat. Like you don't get to post PRs all the time on Instagram, or like everything is just kind of the same weights. You're just like, man, what am I doing? But to go and explore a new hobby where being strong is useful, it's neat to see what you're actually capable of and what you've been able to accomplish over the last like few years of, you know, doing the same weights all the time. Like I know you each have weights that you've squatted. Like I'm sure you've squatted 315 400 million times. And it's like, cool, I've deadlifted 315 like 400 million times. But like that still matters, because when you go outside the world of just lifting, other people haven't done that.
Sure.
And so it's neat to see all your hard work pay off, and gives you another level of appreciation for the years that you put in the gym. Get outside of our bubble a little bit.
That injury was most significant setback you've had in your training?
Yeah, that was the biggest blow, I guess, emotionally for training. Like it really almost took me out of the gym, made a lot of things painful, and definitely had an existential crisis. Like, who am I if I'm not a deadlift PR person? Like, who am I at all? And yeah, it was difficult to be in pain a lot of the times. And it's difficult to like not trust movements as well. Like I'm just like, okay, is this going to be the deadlift where I get hurt again? You know? But it for sure, looking back at it, makes me better at zooming out and like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to be doing something like this until I die. Like it's going to be fine. And it makes me really empathize more with people who are going through it too, because you really feel for like the emotional side effect of something physical, of a physical kind of blow. But yeah, it's cool to be able to zoom out even more. Feels good.
For me, and I don't think this is a secret to most of our listeners, it's been a struggle for me for the last several years as the business has grown, as we've dealt with stress. The way I deal with stress is I'm a fix-it person. And so when there is undue stress in my life, then it's like my life stops in all other capacities until I can work on and fix the problem. And sometimes I can't fix the problem, you know? So it's been tough for a few years, and it's been frustrating just as the business, over the last 5 years has sort of grown significantly. That's just as the time I was going through my late 30s and now early 40s. And you're kind of turning the corner where I'm not going to be able to do what I used to do. And because I didn't find this at 40 years old or 38 years old, I was a professional strongman at 25, and I was a pretty good powerlifter at 21. And so it's been difficult to figure out like what to train for. And yet it's interesting. I was thinking about this after our talk. We had a talk the other night in the Airbnb where Andrew was asking like, what are our personal goals for 2021 and training goals and life goals and things like that. I was thinking about this with the nutrition podcast that you just did with Jillian, Niki, that you guys talked about, what you do and how you plan when you go on vacation. And I've thought about how many of my clients go on vacation and don't train because it's vacation. They train all the time. They go on vacation. They're with their family and they don't. And like, I'm the guy that you guys know that I go on vacation and I train every day on vacation. Now that's weird, right? Because it's opposite to everybody else. Why is this? Because I love to train. I love it. I still love to train. And it's been frustrating for me to be so inconsistent in my training and nutrition. For me, training has always driven my nutrition. So I'm never going to eat very well. It's just not in me because I don't enjoy it that much. If I'm not training, I'm just like, well, I'm not training. So, who cares? And so over the last month, I've trained super consistently. This week has actually been one of my biggest wins. It's Friday. And so I've trained now 4 times this week. And Monday, so we traveled home on Monday from Utah. And I put in a 16-hour day. Niki worked with me for some of that at the airport. We went and sat in the lounge and worked for hours. And I worked all morning at the lounge, on the plane all the way home, got home and finished up stuff. And that started a run for me of, I did 16-hour days of work days. And I'm not saying it to make anybody feel bad. It's my company. I'm doing it because I want to and because we need to wrap up year-end stuff. But I did a 16-hour day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and about a 12 or 13-hour day yesterday. And then I've gone nonstop this morning and it's mid-afternoon. Now, when this is over, it's Friday afternoon, I'm shutting it down and I'm going to relax. And I've trained in the midst of that.
Yeah.
And the training hasn't been exceptional, on the 16-hour days. This morning, I got in and I squatted real hard and real heavy. And we had a news crew coming over to interview me for stuff. And so I wasn't able to do as much of a workout as I wanted to. But the fact that I got up this morning, I ate my Monster Mash, my little vertical diet Monster Mash. Again, I don't think that's necessarily the way to do it. But for me, I had my beef and rice and some eggs, and then I trained and got on with work and got in and got out. Like, to me, those are the wins, because anybody can train. We've talked about this on the podcast before. Anybody can train when everything's great and there's no stress and nothing's injured and training's going well and you're setting PRs. That stuff's easy. And if I'm honest with myself, like, I haven't trained unless I'm in those situations over the last couple of years. And so I've found really I have found motivation and passion even in the days where I need to be disciplined, because I did not want to train today. But I'm loving the way it's making me feel, and the diet, the nutrition as well. And I'm not eating for, I also can fall into these traps where I'm eating because I'm going to Mexico in a month and I just want to look decent on the beach. I'm just eating to be as healthy as I possibly can, to lose body composition, to lose some body fat over time, and to just be healthy and strong and have fun in the gym again and train with my wife. And it's been really good. So, it's short-lived. I'm mostly saying this as an accountability piece, I think, to our listeners, to go like, it's been a blast. And so I'm hoping that 2021 for me is a similar year to what Andrew had in 2020, where I end up losing 40 pounds and I set PRs again.
Ooh. I'm
not going to set all my PRs again. Because I'll never, I say this, I was going to say I'll never hit a bench press PR again. I actually think the only thing I'm closest to is like a 315 bench press for max reps. I think I can hit that as a PR. I'll take anything right now because I don't think I've hit a PR in 5, 6, 7 years.
Time for you to PR.
I'm never going to hit a 1 rep max. I'm never going to hit a 1 rep max bench press PR again because I've torn both pecs and I'm kind of terrified to do it. But I'm excited to push that direction. And so it's been good. It's, a month ago, 5 weeks ago, it wasn't that. And everything else was sort of in balance in my life and the training wasn't. And now it feels really good right now because it seems like all of those things are. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking for me when it's like family's good, business is good.
What's going to happen?
Training's good, nutrition's good. I was like, and China invades tomorrow. And it's like, we all go to war and we lose everything. So that's, I don't know. So no, it's been good. So mostly I'm just saying that for accountability. But no, it's been good. You guys have been extremely encouraging for me there too. So I'm appreciative of that.
Andrew, don't you need to hit a couple lifting goals in 2021 before you age anymore?
Yeah. Should we call them out? Yeah. Should we verbalize them?
Oh, man. Well, the 315 snatch.
The 315 snatch.
315 snatch
is that's on my bucket list. That's probably the last like milestone lift that I really have, that I think I only have a year or two at most to be able to hit that.
But you hit 300 on Sunday, 5 days ago. So you're close.
Just did 300.
Are there like certain lifting numbers that you would like, let's say you're old and you're going to die next week. You just know it because you're old. Are there certain lifting accomplishments that you would just be bummed that you didn't achieve?
That would be the one for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
800-pound deadlift for me. That's the only thing I haven't done that I felt like, yeah, I would have loved to hit a 500-pound bench. And I honestly, really mentally struggled with the fact that every time I got to 450, 455, 460 on bench press, I'd tear a pec off. But you do that enough times and you're like, oh, Jesus didn't make my body to bench press 500 pounds, evidently. So eventually you just kind of take that. You're just like, the 800-pound deadlift, I still have some pipe dreams that I could pull an 800-pound deadlift in the next 2 or 3 years, because nothing's injured enough to not be able to do that. But yeah, with bench press, I don't have any desire. I mean, I would love to have said I hit 500, but I won't ever go for that again.
I was talking to Wolf about that last weekend. There's something about a 500-pound bench, that getting to that just seems like it would take people that I know that are benching 500 plus. It takes a level of craziness, I think, to get to that. I don't know that I'm ever going to want to get to.
Does it take a little bit of extra magic too?
Not for all, but probably for most. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like when Stanton's talking about unracking and he can feel his ulna bending, and I'm like, not really sure I want to go there.
Well, and we felt that a lot of times, like when we did stuff in strongman. We was talking about this, joking around about it last week, is that, like when we did yoke runs, where you would stand up with 1,000 pounds on your back.
Yeah.
Which, why else would you ever have 1,000 pounds on your back unless you're one of the few people who can squat 1,000 pounds, which I definitely was not. So here I am, a 600-pound raw squatter, and the most I ever squatted in a squat suit in my old embarrassing powerlifting days was 800. And now you put 1,000 pounds on your back, or 1,050, and you stand up with it, and then you run down the street. And you talk about what that feels like on the axial skeleton. It ain't great. It ain't great. Nor is it's not healthy. So,
yeah. Yikes.
What's your bucket list thing for 2021?
I think I'll know more this year if it's actually a reasonable thing, but I really want to deadlift 500 pounds. Like if I know that I could get close to it and don't do it, I would be super, super bummed.
I mean, if you get your body weight up to 260, you can definitely deadlift 500 pounds.
That's not going to happen. I don't gain weight anywhere but my 4-inch torso and in my face. So
which isn't helpful. It's not really helpful to the deadlift. So
it's not helpful for deadlift. I'd finally squat 315 if I did that, probably.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
So 315 squat, that's not on the list?
I don't care that much about that.
Yeah,
honestly, I really want the deadlift.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about BJJ stuff? Is there a certain belt that you're like, I really want to push for this?
Oh, that.
Or is it winning a tournament with young women that are since you're an old, frail masters,
I'm an old lady now in jiu-jitsu, which is actually kind of nice. And I feel it. I definitely feel like I'm old when I do jiu-jitsu. But jiu-jitsu is cool because I really appreciate that when you're a certain belt, you're never going to be that belt again. Like being a blue belt's really fun because it's like expectations aren't super high. I mean, they are on yourself because you want to keep growing, but it's like, I'll never get the chance to, air quotes, just be a blue belt and learn everything. So I'm enjoying that now. And then, yeah, like I totally see it within my future to become a black belt, but there's no rush on that because I just want to enjoy things as they come. But for sure, in the blue belt realm, I want to win against the adults division, which is 18 to 29. And I'll soon be in Masters 2, which is 36 to 40. And I want to beat those young pups.
So I'm very ignorant here. So I want to make sure that I don't want to think this if it's wrong. It seems to me like most of the people I know that do martial arts and depend on the martial art, that if they do it long enough and they legitimately try at it long enough, and it may be 20 years, whatever, almost everybody can get to the point where they can become a black belt. Is that fair? Or I mean, are there people who are just like, bro, you're just never gonna, no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try, no matter how long it
I
is,
think so.
can most people get to that if they put in long enough time and enough work?
And also, I'm just coming at it from just a blue belt student. But it seems like if you're curious enough and if you show up to class, you're going to learn something because some of it is repetitive. And a big part of it is wanting it. Like if you want to improve, it's going to happen and your coach will recognize that and you'll get promoted. I think the one restriction is, in jiu-jitsu at least, is you can't be a black belt until you're 18. And crazy enough at my school, there are some 19-year-old black belts and they're incredible.
But they've been doing it since they were 3.
Basically since they were born. I think they grow in fields in Brazil and it's just like fields of black belt embryos.
Think about the difference. I think it's really interesting, the dichotomy between your goal of getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu versus a 500-pound deadlift. The interesting thing is about that is that nobody can get a black belt in jiu-jitsu or probably any of the major martial arts in a year or two. It takes a long time and a lot of work to get there. Yeah. And so it's sort of a dedication to the amount of time and the amount of work it's going to take. But for most people, if you put in that much time and that much work, eventually you can get there. A 500-pound deadlift, some people pull like 3 months in.
Yeah, that is nuts.
But also, there's a lot of people that no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you work, you're never going to get a 500-pound deadlift.
There are real life limitations.
They could take every drug on earth and they're not going to hit a 500-pound deadlift.
That's true.
So it's interesting that you have one that's this, you don't know, no matter how much work you put into deadlifting, if you'll ever be able to deadlift 500. There's sort of this sort of, I don't know, but I'm willing to fight to see if I can get it.
Yeah.
And then with the jiu-jitsu, it's like, if I do this long enough, if I stay dedicated long enough, I'm curious long enough, I continue to work and I make it a priority, you'll probably get there.
Oh, that's it. I hadn't thought about that. That's really neat.
So interesting how different those two goals are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's the big stuff for me. Do you guys have anything else? Closing statements on what we've learned?
No.
Here's the big thing. We're always learning.
Yeah, big time.
We do not have this all figured out. We are so much more healthy of a company, of a staff, of a leadership team today than we were a year ago. I genuinely hope that we can say that a year from now, and because we will make a dedication and a promise to you, our listeners and our community, that we'll never get to the point where we say, like, we got this all figured out. We got it. We will never be complacent. We'll never be satisfied. And yet we'll still celebrate the wins, just like we celebrate the PRs. And so I think whether those are those small wins, those weekly wins, or the big wins, those are important to us. And so it's been a blast working with you guys. I'm excited for many years to come of doing this and seeing what happens. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of like the 500-pound deadlift. It's not like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know. We could work as hard as we want for the next 20 years, and there's no guarantee that this business is going to work or become a big giant business or not. But that also creates part of the fun, that we dig and we work and we don't exactly know what the end result is. And I'm okay with that because I love what I do.
Same.
Like you said last weekend, though, we'll figure out what the right thing is to do and do it 100%.
That's right. That's the thing.
Aww.
We spend enough time thinking about what is right. And once we figure out what is right, we're going as hard as we can.
Yeah.
We dig deep. So guys, thank you for being on the show. Again, for our listeners, thank you for your dedication to the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I actually had several people reach out to me in the last week, including Dr. Pewter. He was like, do you see how many 5-star reviews? I think we're at 985 reviews and we're at 5 stars.
Oh my gosh.
So we just need 15 or maybe even less at this point.
I'm going to call my mom, make sure she gives me a 5-star review.
That's right. If you've listened to the podcast for some time and it's provided you value, it really just takes like 30 seconds. It would be so grateful for you to go and give us a 5-star review and say something nice about us. Say something nice about Niki. That's kind of the way my life goes at this point, is that anywhere I go, everybody's like, yeah, we're pretty excited about you, Matt, but we're mostly excited about Niki. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm fine with that. So I'll take a back seat. So say nice things about Niki or Andrew, and we'd love a 5-star review. Share us with your friends and family. So I hope you guys' holidays are awesome. Spend time with the ones you love.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.